Duke basketball, quick turnaround. I'm wearing the same shirt as I was a couple hours ago. Apologize to all of you who are back, but Duke basketball continues. We will be playing North Carolina for the third time and the second time in a week. And they had a hard-fought game against Wake Forest. And North Carolina has a lot to play for in this game. They look to be on the right side of the bubble as of right now, but no guarantees for sure. And so they need this win. And Duke, most likely, 99% chance is going to be without Cooper Flagg and Maliq Brown for this one. And JD, I know you couldn't watch the Georgia Tech game. So with everything that's happened, what are your thoughts going into the North Carolina matchup?
Let's just start with I'm incredibly sad for Maliq Brown and Cooper Flagg as young men who are injured and can't play in this game. You know that both of them want to be on the court, and given the fact that the same injury occurred to Maliq Brown, I have to say that I wonder about all of my comments that we shouldn't see him until the tournament. And did we rush him back? I don't know. Duke isn't, that's not usually the Duke way of playing, but same injury. And all right. So we got to regroup. It's North Carolina. The good news, it's a neutral court, although they'll definitely be rooting against us anyway. It's just the way it is. But it's a neutral court. That electric atmosphere inside of the Dean Dome is not there. And I like our chances. I mean, it's not I want to be strong in that. We're going to win. We may not win by a lot, but we're going to win this game. And our continued beatdown of the North Carolina teams will pick up a sixth win this season.
Going right to it, huh? Going right to it. Okay. This is gonna be a test. It's gonna be a couple of things. Number one, Maliq Brown, both times he got hurt in the past. This is his third time, unfortunately. He came back for the North Carolina game. And both times he was essential for Duke in the games. The first game you could argue whether he was essential because Duke was up by 30. But the second game, there's no argument. He was the person who shut off the water to RJ Davis, he had like 20 points in the first 24 minutes. And Coach Shire gave an update on Maliq Brown. Apparently, he was in so much pain, they actually put him on a stretcher, and he was at the hospital. And Coach Shire said he was going to go see him once he was able to get out, from, I guess, his media availability. And Cooper, he's not going to play. And Coach Shire even alluded to the fact that he knows Cooper is going to try to play, and it's basically his responsibility to make sure that does not happen. And so I think the starting lineup for Duke is going to be the same for Sion, Proctor, Kahn, and Mal. And the fifth starter will be Mason Gillis, who I think will see extended minutes opposed to the 10 to 12 he would typically get. I think he'll be in the 18 to 22 range, maybe more, depending on how he's playing. And we've seen in the past, in stretches, whether it was Louisville, Wake Forest, Florida State, even it wasn't perfect, but I thought the North Carolina game, they did all right when Gillis was in for Flagg initially. After he picked up his third foul, it wasn't as good, but before Cooper came back when he had 2 fouls, they were playing all right. And so I think we saw in the second half with Georgia Tech, Con Knippel's got the keys. It's his offense to run now, and it's about Proctor and Isaiah Evans supplementing Con and helping him with the scoring. And other guys are going to have to step up with playmaking. And the big thing is going to be defense, because Cooper Flagg and Maliq Brown are Duke's best defenders. And so the rest, it's a great defensive team with them, and it's still a good defensive team without them. But other guys are going to have to step up.
Right. So missing two of our best guys, and let's face it, in the UNC game, Maliq Brown was terrific, clogging the middle and doing what he does on defense, and then also picking up RJ Davis when Proctor couldn't seem to do it. I mean, it was one of those times when RJ was unconscious, and it happens, and he loves to do it against Duke. So if Cooper Flagg, who also had 4 blocks in the second half, and Maliq Brown are not available, I think you had a really interesting approach to this game as far as the defense was concerned.
Well, I think it will depend on who's in for Duke. I think when Maliq is in, I don't think the defense changes. Even though RJ Davis and Cadeau gave Maliq issues when he was switched out onto them in the game at North Carolina, I think we've seen Maliq have success in similar matchups in the past. I think you give it a go and you try to stay with the man-to-man switching defense. But with Gangba on the court, I think we'll see more zone defense from Duke. We've seen it mixed in at times this year, but I think it will be more of a consistent option for Duke in this game against North Carolina. And it will be tricky, though, because North Carolina has been shooting the 3 much better as of late, and the zone will give opportunities for them to shoot the 3. And so it's going to be important that Duke is mindful in the zone as to who is going to get the open look. Because if it's Trimble and he hits a bunch of 3s, that's one thing. But we can't give up open looks from 3 in the zone to RJ Davis. And so it's almost got to be you force Trimble, Cadeau, maybe Powell's a decent shooter, but you might make him shoot more than he wants to. You probably don't want to let Withers shoot. He's been on a tear, although I don't think he shot the ball great in this game against Wake Forest. He was 2 for 7, but the game before he hit 7 threes. So he's probably not the guy either. So it's about picking who you're comfortable letting beat you, if you will, and if you're going to mix in the zone a little bit more.
So I think that without Coop and Maliq, that we do have to go zone. But I think it's a different zone. I don't think it's a 2-1-2. I think it's a 1-3-1, and you put Proctor out high. And you have Proctor trying to shut down whoever the best scorer is. You bring the wings up higher, and then you leave. I wonder which. I think maybe Mal in the middle, because his arm extension is so wide, and then Mason Gillis underneath. And I go 1-3-1. I don't wait. I do it right from the beginning.
I'm not sold on that concept over there. I would think you would want Maliq by the rim as opposed to Gillis, no? All right, well, we'll disagree on that.
We're
because
going to disagree on that because I'm listening to how your concern is over the three. So I've got to stretch for who is going to be able to put an arm up. And we know that Mal can quickly get to someone as a distraction. So I would put him in the middle, helping out anywhere, have Proctor on top running. Gillis is strong enough to be underneath with really almost anyone, or Sion for that matter, is
mm-hmm.
strong enough to be underneath. And then I would use K2 and, as I think about it, K2 and Gillis on the outside portion of the 1-3-1.
Now we're getting somewhere. So you said you actually put a zone into my mouth here, so to speak. I didn't say 2-1-2. That's not the zone I would play. I would play a 2-3 zone with Proctor and Sion up top. You have Gillis, because the thing that worries me about the 1-3-1 is you're going to give up some corner threes, which I think is the easiest three to shoot. And with the 2-3, you can stop the corner threes, make them shoot above the break. And because Trimble can knock down the corner three, Powell can knock down the corner three. But if we can make them shoot above the break threes, you don't let RJ. That's the number one rule of all of this. It's not RJ. I think both of us agree on that, no matter what zone we're in. And you keep Maliq or Gangba in the paint because, additionally, Van Allen Lubin has been playing much better as of late for North Carolina. He's got double-doubles in both of the ACC Tournament games. And I don't want to I want to make them, as much as I'm worried about RJ and to another extent Withers shooting the three, I don't want to also give up twos. So I'm going to prevent the twos with Maliq and Gangba around the rim and give up above the break threes or mid-range shots if they want to put somebody in the middle of the zone.
Are you suggesting Mal and Gangba at the same time?
No. What I'm saying is that when one of them's they're playing the same position, but it's just subs, right? So I think
as much as I'm tempted to do that, actually,
no way.
I'm afraid that we're going to just have someone in foul trouble, and there's going to be no one to go to. But I think we absolutely play a zone in this game from the beginning. I don't think we wait to go into the zone. I think we use a zone. I kind of like your idea of a 2-3. If they're not used to playing a 1-3-1, which is really good for, and when you extend it, it's really good for that, and you have Mal in the middle. But if you're not used to it, it's a tough zone to play. So 2-3 is a slight variation from a 2-1-2. It's just a question of one position being played a little differently. But I don't think we wait. I think we lost our two best defenders, and I think we go right into the zone. And then, so that's what I think I would do on the defensive end. That's the adjustment. And let's see what happens. If it doesn't work, go man to man. I wouldn't do it the other way around.
That's fair. I think it's also going to be important for Duke to do a better job in this game than they did in the first game, especially the first 24 minutes of not turning the ball over, because that gave North Carolina a lot of offensive juice. And if we can keep it to a half-court contest, even without those two guys in the second half, the first 12 minutes, Duke held Georgia Tech to 12 points. Now, they finished the half with 39, and they just start hitting everything. But they showed that without their two best defenders, they can still be a very good defense. And so I think I hear your point on starting in the zone. I wouldn't mind if they start with man, but um, either way, I think we'll see a good amount of zone from Coach Shire and company here. Offensively, I think it's going to be one thing I'm curious about. So Foster played today. I know you didn't get a chance to watch the game.
How did he play?
It wasn't like the North Carolina game,
Uh,
right? And with the injuries, um, we are a little bit smaller without Cooper. Um, Gongba though does give us more size than Maliq, but we all there's just they're very different players, right? And so we go to the bench. Gongba and Evans, I think, will be the first guys in. Today, the first guys in against Georgia Tech. He brought it. The under 16 break was a little bit extended. It went into like the 14-minute and change mark. So he ended up bringing Foster, Evans, and Brown in together. And so I'm curious, will Foster – I think he's got to play with the injuries, right? And so, unless I'm forgetting somebody, the bench is Evans, Gongba, Foster, which means that the starters are going to have to play heavy minutes unless Darren Harris gets a little bit of run in this game as well. But I'm not sold on that idea.
if we're playing zone, then I think Harris can get time. It's very different. You're not relying one on one. Um, so I think let's go back to the offense. It's a question of Sion, Proctor, and K2. Can the three of them, without the help from Cooper Flagg, not turn the ball over? What's your thoughts?
I think they can. I think Khan now against Georgia Tech, he did a great job of running. I mean, Sion would bring the ball up, and then when it was time to get into the offense, half the time the play was, all right, Malawatch come up, set a screen, and then they're gonna play pick and roll, and then he's gonna make either he's gonna pass it to Kaman for the oop, he's gonna take it himself to the basket, or he's gonna kick out to somebody for a three, right? And I think that it's a very simple offense, but it works. The thing that I'm a little bit worried about in this matchup against North Carolina is they had a lot of really good ball pressure. And not the first game against Duke. It was two different teams. But the second game, especially Powell, he was really doing – he stripped Khan when he was dribbling the ball up the court in the backcourt. And then he got under Cooper's skin a little bit and forced him to – he pushed off, and that was his second foul. And so that is something that Duke is going to have to navigate much better without Cooper Flagg in this game against North Carolina. And they're going to have to deal with the pressure that North Carolina is going to bring. They're going to be really hungry for this one. Obviously, with the NCAA tournament, they're on the bubble. They're on the right side of the bubble, but you never know. Like last year, there's a lot of bid stealers. That could happen again, and they'll go from the right side to slowly the wrong side. They've got a lot to play for, and they've also lost both games to Duke so far this year, and they're going to be extra motivated. I think their defense will be locked in early, and so I think Duke is going to have to do what they're going to have to do to combat that is use the aggression against them, and try to so if they're going to play. They're going to press, full court. Well, not necessarily the whole team, but if Powell's going to press full court, set a screen, get separation, and play fast. And use that against North Carolina and try to attack the pressure.
Did they use the zone at all today?
They did.
They
They
did.
did. They mixed it in. They didn't use it a ton, but they ballparks 5 minutes, no more than 10.
Okay. Um, just curious. I already made my feelings that I think they should just start in the zone. Um, it's funny. You say zone and take the pace of the game down because I'm concerned that if we try to play at a very fast pace, then the turnovers will come and take the try to see if we can do it. Now, the first pass in, whoever's inbounding it, there's got to be a pick right away in the backcourt in order to free up somebody around midcourt and make certain they can at least get it over the line and they don't struggle to do that.
Yeah. I think the adjustment there is Sion brings the ball up because, I mean, he does. We all know he's strong. He's got a good frame, and he does a really good job when he brings the ball up of using that frame to create distance between himself and the defender, and not allow for the majority of the time the ball to be stolen from him. Then when he brings the ball up, then get it to Khan and let him operate the pick and roll with either Gangba or Maliq, depending on who's on the court. I think it's a good point on the pace of the game. I think Duke has to be opportunistic when they look to play fast, but in order for them to set up in the zone properly, it can't be an up and down game. And
That's
that I
right.
think
And
you're right. That favors North Carolina.
so in the world that I live in, which is not John Shire's world, um, I do put in my 1-3-1. I have Sion James underneath the basket. Therefore, the first pass goes from him to whoever is open, and then it goes back to Sion. You could do it I know the other way to think about it is the first pass goes into Sion, but then two guys will swarm him, and he's got to be able to make the next pass. I'd rather see Sion, who is very, I think he's very. There's not much that's going to rattle him. So if he can get the first pass in, and if you need to coming out of the zone, the first pass goes up high to Mal, and then Mal turns and looks at his wings. I mean, this is a quick turnaround. We had a lot of damage here, and
Say the
Cooper,
least.
Flagg, and Maliq, and the defensive coordinator Jay Lucas, who could be thinking about the kind of adjustments that I'm thinking about. Um, got to shake it up. Got to absolutely shake it up and not say you can play the Cooper Flagg role, you can play the Maliq Brown role, because sorry, there isn't anybody who is Cooper Flagg. There isn't anybody that deflects the balls. We've got to play with the players we have. And in which case, that's why I like the zone. That's why I like bringing the pace of the game down. And we're going to hopefully have the way you set up the offense, where Sion is trying to get the ball to um, Maliq at high, above the foul line, so that someone is running off of not Maliq, off of sorry. Try it again. Sion's got the ball. He's looking to pass it to Mal. Mal gets the ball and someone's running off of him.
Mm.
He then is looking for either the next pass, or it goes from Sion not to Mal. They've got to learn a
Let me
lot of things really quickly,
no.
because it's either Sion's got the ball and he can get it to Mal, or Mal going off of a pick and going in and trying to loft it up to Mal, hopefully drawing a crowd of people, leaving Proctor and K2 open on the wings, so that if Mal doesn't draw anybody, he's got two outside options. Go ahead.
Let me help you out because I know you couldn't watch the game today. What Duke did without Cooper Flagg, it was the Con Knipple show. And you talk about playing with poise and composure and playing at your own pace. That was Con Knipple in the second half today. And he did an awesome job of so I want to kind of correct something. Sion brings the ball up, and then he gets it to Khan, not Maliq, not Kaman. Although at times, after this would happen, they would run a DHO dribble handoff where Kaman would have the ball, and then it would either be typically Khan, sometimes Proctor would run around him and then try to get some momentum towards the rim or get an opening for a shot, right? And I think the base of the offense is Khan operating out of the pick and roll with Maliq or Gangba. Keep it simple. Then you would mix in some dribble handoff action with one of the bigs and Proctor. Proctor can also run some pick and roll as well. You mix it up so that way Khan is off the ball at times. And then when Evans is in the game, we run what we always do. We run those flare screens. We try to get Evans just a little bit of separation so he can get off his shot. I think in terms of the one thing I think in terms of like shot diet, like how many shots should guys get without Cooper Flagg for a full game? I think with Khan, he's probably 15 shots, somewhere in there, somewhere in that range. Proctor, probably looking at 12 shots. Evans, I mean, at least 10, you know. I think it was one. I just started laughing because they asked Con Knipple about Evans, and they said, you know, it seemed like he had extra juice tonight. Apparently, he's from around the Charlotte area, and he was getting his shot off, and Con said, well, I think that's just Isaiah Evans. He was like, I think if he was in Arizona, if he was in New York, he's gonna get his threes off. And that is Isaiah Evans. And I think this is gonna be an opportunity for him in a big game to be a more focal part of the offense. And I think also it's gonna be one thing I'm curious about is North Carolina did a decent job in the last game at preventing the Maliq alley-oops. I think maybe there's a couple times we could have found him, but overall I think they did a good job at guarding that. And if that's not available, who for Duke is going to put pressure on the rim? Because that's typically Cooper Flagg. Khan does it in his own way. Sion, he'll attack the rim for sure, so he'll be part of it. And Proctor does it, it's not the majority of his game, but he'll mix it in, right? And so it's going to be important for everyone else to mix in drives to the basket because we won't have that from Flagg.
So I think another important thing is to understand that as far as the rotation is concerned, we're only playing 7 players. If Foster didn't play well today after having a couple of really good minutes in the North Carolina game, I doubt he gets much time. I just don't think it's going to happen. And he's not going to go, Coach Schreider's not going to go to Harris either, in which case Gangba is filling in for Mal and Gillis will fill in, will be part of a rotation. They have to go to a zone because these guys are going to be playing close to 40 minutes, 35 minutes each or something.
Khan may not come out of the game. He played 38 minutes today. He'll probably play at least 38. And I think that's a great point. Gillis is probably going to play more minutes than I thought earlier. Like I said, 18 to 20. 22 or something. He's probably gonna be like 25 or so. And then Evans, Evans is gonna play 25 minutes or maybe slightly more. I think Sion and Proctor will be around 35. I think Sion will be 30 plus, and then Foster will get a 4-minute stretch, and if he plays well, he'll get 10 to 15, and if he doesn't, that will probably be the extent that he plays. And I think that's kind of what we've seen of late from Shire, is that it just depends on how he does. But I think he'll get a chance just because the bench is so short after losing to those two guys. So I think he'll give him an opportunity and then see how it goes.
Well, and I think that is the argument for why I see them playing zone most of the game, and I see them bringing the pace way down because they're playing 7 guys. And if you, I mean, what do you expect? The 7, these are, I mean, I guess they could surprise everybody and just try to run the court, but that didn't work out too well in the last game against UNC, given the number of turnovers that we had in the first half. And honestly, it was a 1-point game at halftime, in which case playing the open game didn't work as well. It wasn't really until Coop took over the game in the second half and led them all to believe they could win.
I'm not sure. I don't agree with your assessment on the pace being the reason for the turnovers, because Duke had been playing fast in a bunch of the games prior to that, and they didn't have those number of turnovers.
Well, no. So my point is that given the opponent, that is why the pace can't be high. I obviously they had 4 games where they were like 100 or more points a game and averaged almost 100 points over a 7-game stretch. But UNC playing as hard as they have been playing, willing to play at a very fast pace, that is a recipe for disaster as far as I'm concerned.
I agree on the pace. I just didn't agree on the turnover assessment, but that's perfectly fine. That's why we do the show. Now, before we forget, let's do score predictions. And before we get to score predictions, please like this video. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and drop your score prediction in the comments below. We'll be picking whoever gets the most score predictions right at the end of the year. We will be sending a piece of Duke swag, little gift to you guys. So, JD, you want to go first? You want me to go first this time? I think last time I went first.
I'm ready to go. In a very tight game, but if I'm going to go with my gut that they're going to slow the pace down, they're going to play in a zone, Duke wins 63-61.
Wow. All right, let me write that down. I feel like that's a very good score. I think I'm a little bit higher than you. Similar margin. I have it Duke.
The score, right?
Yes, in the score. Yep. I have it not right now. Duke 75, North Carolina 72. Still got faith.
Okay.
Still got faith in the Blue Devils. I just think in this game, your assessment I completely agree with in terms of trying to keep the pace slow. I just think North Carolina, Duke, there will be moments where the pace will pick up, and I think that will raise the level of score. Like Wake Forest does a really good job of keeping the pace slow, and that is something where it will be interesting. And we'll know pretty early on how Duke wants to handle that.
What was the final score of the Wake Forest UNC game?
It was, give me one moment here. I got to pull it up. 68-59. 68-59. Now, I think that is more to do with Wake Forest, obviously, than North Carolina, who would love to play a game in the 80s. But I think it also says a lot about where North Carolina is right now and how much they've improved, that they were able to win a game that wasn't played in the style that they want to play.
Stay tuned. We'll be with you what time tomorrow?
Game's at 7 o'clock, so we'll have the post-game reaction immediately afterwards, sometime around 9:10 Eastern time. We'll be live on YouTube. And this preview, all of our previews are available on Apple and Spotify podcasts. And make sure to share this with your basketball friends. And JD, you've got one more thing you want to add here?
Yeah, I was just no. I was double checking. It's Saturday night that it's 8:30, and I was just double checking that it wasn't 7:30 tomorrow night. But you're right. There are two games, so they got to get them both in. So 7 o'clock. I just want to make certain the start time was right. You were right. I think it's time to sign off. I need to do a little bit more.
Crying. Yeah, I feel terrible for Maliq Brown. He comes back the first half against North Carolina. It's like, all right, he looks a little rusty. And the second half, I know Cooper was the best player, but like he was awesome in the second half. He hits the 2 threes. You're like, man, this guy, like, oof. You start thinking, I started thinking he comes back next year. He's a 3-point shooter. All of a sudden, he's a draft pick. I still think that can happen. And now he's got this dislocated shoulder for the second time. And the one thing about, I mean, we don't know any of the Duke players, but from what we've seen, he's a very quiet guy, but he seems like a great teammate. And all of his, like, throughout the summer, when you listen to the podcast, all you'd hear is the players talk about how great Maliq Brown is defensively, how many deflections he gets, and it's a real shame if he's not going to be able to be on the court to finish out the season with Duke. Cooper, I at least feel like will probably be back for the first round of the NCAA tournament. At least I think there's a better chance. But with Maliq, I think maybe the second round. I think Cooper definitely will be back for the second weekend, I should say.
The second weekend of the tournament. We're not going to have Maliq. Probably don't have Coop for that first weekend. And usually we can get to the Sweet 16. I would have been saying handily. I'm sure we'll be up against some teams that would love to take Duke down. But I think we're going to have to get through that first weekend without Coop. And then I think it's a realistic chance to say for the second weekend, the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, Coop is ready. Because let's face it, we're dealing with handling the most precious merchandise in basketball, period. Other than, think about Victor Wembanyama going down.
Yep.
It's like Cooper Flagg rolled his ankle. We're waiting. And I'm Cooper Flagg's parents. We're not rushing this guy back into anything.
Mm-hmm. No, and you're right. It'll just depend on how he's recovering, how the swelling's doing, and that we'll probably find out at some point next week, realistically. The only other thing I will say before we wrap up here is, please, no matter what happens in this game against North Carolina, no more injuries. That's all I ask for. No more injuries. And we'll see you guys post-game tomorrow night around 9:10. See you then. Peace.